Hello from Brisbane. I hope your Congress is going well. I'm sure you'll agree the Laser team have done a great job in putting this virtual Congress together at this time. I'm Damien Edmonds from Edmonds Marketing, and today I'm going to talk with you about marketing in a changing climate, how to build and maintain trust and confidence with your customers at this difficult time. COVID-19 has undoubtedly had a negative impact on the reputation of the aged care sector. Here in Australia, the cluster of cases in Victorian aged care facilities has caused widespread concern around hygiene standards and transparency. With the fear of the virus now always present, it's more important than ever for aged care organisations to protect their reputations and customer relationships. Today I'll walk you through 3 communication themes to help make a difference for your organisation at this time. Theme number 1, providing visible leadership and leveraging your reputation and credibility. Theme number 2, understanding your audiences, looking at both their concerns at this time and anticipating future problems in advance, such as ongoing isolation, family visit protocols and potential staffing crises. Finally, theme number 3, transparent and timely communications to differentiate your organisation and build customer confidence. Transparent and timely communications provide value to your customers, so it enables you to shout more loudly about your team's successes. It also ensures your digital reputation reflects your real achievements at this unprecedented time. The advice I offer today is practical and accessible. And as we approach 2021, with the prospect of a vaccine still over the horizon, it's important to master communications now and come out on top. Just to be clear, your customers are the most important consideration at this time. Your reputation as an organisation depends on it. Hey, just so that you're aware, we've put together a communication checklist to go with this video for Laser's 2020 Congress. Hopefully you're able to implement at least one of these practical and accessible ideas. So are you ready? Let's get into it. Regardless of whether the federal government should have acted faster to contain the deadly spread of COVID-19 through Australia's aged care facilities, coronavirus has undoubtedly had a negative impact on the reputation of the aged care sector. The Aged Care Royal Commission most recently found preparations for coronavirus in some aged care homes as insufficient. And as of the end of September, 220 nursing homes around the country have had an outbreak of coronavirus. More than 4,000 aged care residents and staff have been affected with the virus, leading to 657 deaths. Over the past several months, the Australian public has been exposed to terrible stories of suffering as a result of the outbreak. We've heard awful stories. For example, in September, before he died from the virus, a 90-year-old man used his mobile to call his daughter, telling her he was hungry because carers left meals on trays out of reach. He told her he would wait for hours after he pressed the call bell to go to the toilet or when he fell out of his wheelchair. Or the awful story about the daughter-in-law who became increasingly worried about her 92-year-old mother-in-law during lockdown. The daughter-in-law said, "We're not getting answers on the phone. We're not getting answers on email." A week after the first case was recorded at that facility, it was reported that just 6 rostered staff showed up to care for 115 residents. Her mother-in-law was transferred to hospital, but not because of COVID. She'd had a fall. On admission, her family were called by a doctor saying there were signs she was infected with the virus. He told her that her mother-in-law was dehydrated with a cough and temperature. Once admitted to hospital, she tested positive for COVID and unfortunately passed away 3 days later. Unfortunately, this is the narrative that, for obvious reasons, cuts through on the national media landscape, the narrative that the Australian public remembers. It's the human stories that resonate most. The Australian public finds it harder to understand the role of regulatory and governing bodies, or how aged services in Australia have fared compared to comparative nations. And rightly so, vulnerable people have died and not received the care and attention they deserved when they needed it most. At the end of the day, we're human, so it's tragic and shocking to hear these stories. They stay in our minds long after we've heard them, and it's hard to understand how our system failed and how people were made to suffer. It was always understood that the virus posed a risk to our older citizens. The cluster of cases in aged care facilities in Victoria has caused widespread concern around hygiene standards and transparency. But what we don't hear as clearly is the stories of the facilities who've handled it well. We don't hear about the extra efforts and precautions that have occurred to keep residents safe during this difficult period and extenuating circumstances. Of course, you're much more likely to be aware of this if you work in the aged services industry, or if you have a loved one receiving care services. But it's unlikely your positive experiences or stories will be picked up by the national media. Good news stories about organisations doing what they should do are far less compelling. In marketing, your brand is essentially that point where your organisation's promise meets your customers' expectations. Your brand is essentially your customer's warranty for when things go wrong. So how you communicate as an organisation really matters. And in today's post-digital world, perceptions and reality become harder to distinguish. Effective communications are critical to managing customers and stakeholder perceptions, especially during difficult times. Effective communications ensure customers and stakeholders understand the steps being taken to deliver appropriate quality care and safety for all. Effective communications not only help with managing public perceptions around your level of care, it also helps attract new customers and recommendations to your service. So communicating what you're doing and how you're doing it well in your own channels helps to position your organisation for the future, a form of sustainability if you like. So if you have a loved one receiving care services, how do you know the level of care they are receiving if you're not able to visit them? How can you trust and believe they're receiving quality care that they deserve? Corporate communications is likely to be more important than ever post-COVID due to distrust and concern about safety and care quality within aged care services. Over the past 25 years, corporate communications has evolved from public relations, a component of marketing's promotional mix. It is corporate communications that can help aged service providers to build and maintain trust as well as confidence with their core customers and stakeholders. Effective corporate communications can assist you to firstly gain the confidence and support of current customers, their families, and your staff, promoting further loyalty, even advocacy. Secondly, it can increase awareness in your broader community, including prospective customers, referring bodies, benefactors, and volunteers. And the third way effective corporate communications can assist you is to shape a positive, strong brand image of your organisation as a trusted, authoritative provider of quality services. And in a world with the COVID risk ever present, we reckon it's more important than ever for aged service organisations to protect their reputations and relationships. But what does effective corporate communications consist of? And what steps can you take to put your best foot forward at this time? We believe there are 3 key steps to effective corporate communications, 3 steps to building and maintaining trust as well as client confidence at this difficult time. Those 3 steps are visible leadership, understanding your audience, and finally transparent and timely communications. Let's get into the first step now, visible leadership. During difficult times, more than ever, people are looking for individuals to trust. They want someone with the competence and drive to lead them through this period of adversity. This is where age service leaders have a real opportunity to reflect their organisation well and build their brand equity with customers and families, as well as with staff and the wider community. During the COVID pandemic, we've seen Scott Morrison's stock surge from an all-time low during the bushfires when he secretly left Australia to holiday in Hawaii. Though since late January, when the virus reared its head, his popularity has increased significantly. He's made mistakes along the way. However, he's demonstrated his vulnerability, has been ever present, as you would expect, and aligned himself closely with the advice of other experts, including the Chief Medical Officer, to make bold early decisions to close our borders. He's been pragmatic in the face of adversity and has changed his economic stance, pouring billions into the Australian economy to provide relief. Compare this to Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, who have been accused of inconsistency, appearing to react to situations as they unfold, which in turn has caused further confusion. During the coronavirus, your customers, their families and your employees have all experienced periods of extreme uncertainty and confusion. At a time like this, it's natural for people to seek guidance and reassurance. So let me remind you, the CEO and leadership team are the face of your organisation. Many providers' communications at this time have been spearheaded by their CEOs and leaders, and in doing so we hope their communications have strengthened their profile and the reputation of the organisations they represent. Conversely, a lack of leadership communications or poor delivery may undermine trust in one's brand. We've seen organisations step up their communications in order to strengthen their response at this time. By providing proactive communications on an ongoing basis, seeking to reassure and provide clear direction, they've in turn strengthened their profile and reputation. With clients we've worked with, we've seen engagement levels increase exponentially during COVID by communicating through their own channels. Website visits, engagement with social media posts and followers have all increased several fold, in line with the consumption of CEO letters and e-news updates. This higher level of engagement has been driven by an unprecedented interest and need for information. In today's socially distanced world, these communications may take many different forms, but all demand digital support. They may include e-newsletters, videos, emails, briefs or news flashes, newly formed sections and landing pages to websites, even text messages to inform various cohorts of the latest updates and changes. What we know to be true is that in uncertain times, visible leadership is important. Firstly, visible leaders keep customers and stakeholders informed of new developments in a timely manner. Secondly, when they don't know all the answers, visible leaders can be relied upon to be honest and always clear. Visible leaders provide direction and communicate the necessary steps and actions required. They reassure with processes in place to manage and overcome the situation at hand. Honesty and openness in turn strengthens trust. So that brings me to the end of visible leadership. I'll now move on to our second theme, understanding your audience. So you're probably thinking, it all seems pretty obvious. A key part of effective engagement is to understand my audiences, to actively listening to what they have to say, and to identify any issues associated with their position. But in the rush to deliver services and respond to your day-to-day, do you really take the time to understand and listen to your customers and stakeholders? In age services, typically your customers consist of your direct clients, that is your residents or service users. But their families and carers are also emotionally involved in their care, and they may likely have a stronger voice than your direct customer. The families and carers are the ones who are also often harder to reach and may have unfounded concerns or lack understanding around what's happening within your organisation. These stakeholders, just like employees, play a key role in shaping your organisation's perceptions. These stakeholders may not be considered customers, but they have a critical role in influencing how others view your organisation and its service quality. So identify who your stakeholder groups are. For example, employees, referring groups such as GPs, allied health partners, discharge planners, even local community groups and prospective customers. By identifying your stakeholder cohorts, you can also look at those communication portals available to both easily and cost-effectively access these groups, a valuable way to spread the word and strengthen your brand or organisation's position for the longer term. Good service quality is much more than processes and policies. Age services are people-orientated, and your audiences will all value regular updates. So make sure these people are also reflected in the language and imagery that you use. Whilst you may not have any bad news permeating from your organisation, are your audiences aware of the good work that you have undertaken? Put yourself in their shoes. Consider what's being presented on your website and in social media posts. Are you taking steps to ensure your audiences understand how you are continuing to manage the situation? How does this reflect on your organisation? It may demonstrate your caring, but is it professional? Does it convey a strong and reassuring image of your organisation at this time? During COVID, organisations have also needed to respond quickly to emerging issues. Being across the stories emerging in the wider media landscape has been helpful, as these shape your audience's impressions and drive concerns. And by better understanding your varying audiences, you can also anticipate potential problems in advance, such as ongoing isolation timeframes, family visit protocols, or potential staffing crises. Last year I spoke on the importance of feedback and complaints at LARS's Tri-State New South Wales and Queensland conferences. Rather than waiting until a larger issue emerges, two-way communications provide portals and platforms for early discussions to occur. Creating two-way mechanisms drives improved feedback from those audiences. So consider a mixture of formal discussions, meetings and surveys. Also look at the use of top-line polling tools, even informal and casual catch-ups, to unpack potential concerns. In short, your corporate communications will be more effective if you consider your audience's point of view. So that brings me to the end of understanding your audiences, our second step of corporate communications. I'll now move on to our third theme. Our third and final theme today is transparent and timely communications. Over the last 6 months, we've all sought out trusted sources that can be relied to provide timely and clear information. As service providers, you have a responsibility to give this information to your clients and their families, to your staff, as well as the broader community. If you do this well and in an effective manner, your reputation will be judged accordingly. So here are several ways you can provide and be relied upon for relevant, clear, and timely information. Number 1. Dispatch regular news updates. Consider how these updates portray your organisation. Ensure they're constantly well produced and presented. A simple and clean layout, a caring and knowledgeable voice, concise and to the point, with the design reflective of your logo and brand imagery. These regular news updates are more effective if they're easy to read and engage, and if they present your organisation in a professional way. Number 2, make key information as accessible as possible. Consider an integrated approach so that your news and feature items are shared across different platforms and are clearly signposted. Ensure your website visitors can quickly find what they're looking for. Is your website edited and updated regularly? On your social media sites, include headline and news information as short posts with links back to your website or other authoritative services. Number 3, monitor your newsworthiness and audience interest. Digital media provides easily accessible data on open rates, click-through rates and unsubscribe numbers. Harness your analytics for Google and MailChimp, as well as Facebook or other social media platforms to understand how your communications are received. They should attract ongoing interest, so focus on maintaining and increasing their reach as well as engagement. Number 4, ensure your digital communications are centered on your customer. There are a number of ways you can provide reassurance that you are a trusted, caring organisation. Be a constant sleuth, follow your public's concerns, look to understand what information they need, and anticipate any future problems or information they might be seeking. Again, social media provides a window into your organisation, so use it to your advantage. Ensure your communications include images and stories of your customers with real live examples of day-to-day care within your service. Number 5, develop an ongoing schedule of communications activity. Shout more loudly about individual successes to differentiate your organisation. Become more transparent than ever before with your data, your images and your stories. And finally, number 6, have efficient processes in place to monitor customer mood. Be aware of emerging issues and be agile enough to respond to these. Look to spread responsibility for communications with your broader team. Help them to understand its importance and their contribution. Remember, your customers are your organization's most important consideration at this time. Your reputation depends on it. In conclusion today, I've talked through 3 main corporate communication themes, which can really make a difference for your organisation at this time. There's no doubt that lessons have been learnt about effective and efficient communications mechanisms. And as a result, both customers and stakeholders will expect more of their age service leadership in the future. Finally, don't forget to download the checklist that we've put together especially for this video on how to build and maintain trust and confidence with your customers at this time. Thanks for your time today. I wish you a productive Laser Congress and a communicative 12 months ahead.